So the very first thing you have to do is you have to open Photoshop. Now we have installed on our computers now Photoshop Creative Cloud, which is called CC. So if you go into here into the open the program thing, you'll see that you have Adobe Photoshop CC, and that's what you're going to open, is Adobe Photoshop CC. So this is what it looks like. This is the workspace for Adobe Photoshop CC. So you'll see that it has some words at the top, instructions, and they, of course, each one has a menu underneath. It has different little what we call palettes or windows in here, and different ones will be open at different times. I always want you to have these two windows open. Okay, I want you to go into the Window tab and go down and make sure your History window is checked and that your Layers window is checked. Both of those must be open for everything that you work on. The layers are what makes Photoshop what it is. It allows you to have a basic picture and to do layers on top of it that you can go back to and turn on or off and see what you've done to it. That's the beauty of Photoshop. So those both must be open, and you can see over here, here's my Layers window and here's my History window, both of which have nothing in it right now because we haven't done anything with it yet. Okay? And those sit to the side. This little bar over here is called the toolbar, and you're going to learn what each of these little things does, or most of them, not all. And if you hover over them, it tells you what it does. There's the Move tool, there's the Marquee tool, the Lasso, Quick Selection tool, the Crop tool, etc. So if you hover over them, it kind of tells you. Each of these little cornered little triangles means there's a drop-down menu. If you right-click, that there's more things in there. The only one well, actually, in the old Photoshop, this was the only one that didn't have anything behind it, but now I see there's a couple of them here. Anyway, so those are what we're going to be working with, the tools here and some of the stuff that are up here, okay? So we need to open up a picture in Photoshop. We can do it more than two ways, but one of two ways is we can just take find our picture, and if we minimize this, except that I just screwed it up. If we minimize this, I can just click on a picture and drag it in there and it opens it. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to go to File, Open, and I can just find my file and I can click on it and open it. So I'm going to go to the desktop and I'm going to click on a file and I'm going to open it. So if I click on that and open it, I have two pictures in here now. And you can see they're what we call docked at the top. So you see these little tabs up here with the names on them. This says Cool Color Weeds, and this one is the image number. That's how it comes in from the camera. So if you click back on each tab, it shows you which picture is which. Sometimes those of us who use Photoshop a lot are annoyed by the docking, so we undock them. And the way to undock them is just click on that tab and move it down. So it undocks them. And to redock them, you just move them back up and it redocks them back up. Okay? So this one is the one we're going to open, so I have this one selected because that means when I click on this, that one's selected. The first thing we do in any picture in Photoshop at any time is crop it. Before we do anything else in Photoshop, we crop the image. The cropping tool is the fifth tool on the left. So if I click on that with my left mouse, you'll see that I have these handles all the way around the image now. There's two ways to crop. I can click and move those handles anywhere I want, okay, any way I want, or I can just draw a box in the middle, cancel, draw a box in the middle, whoops, except it's not doing that. I think you have to do it right off the bat before you adjust this. Let's go back here and I'll show you. So let's go back here and start over. I can just draw a box in how I want to crop, and then I still have the handles to move it around how I want. Okay? So let's say I want to crop it something like this. Okay? So then I'm just going to hit Enter, and that crops it. But now you'll notice a really cool thing on my History palette here is that I have the image, and then I have, whoops, the cropping. Oh gosh, how come I keep stepping back? Crop it. Oh, we're in the wrong image, sorry. Don't normally have that. So in here, go back here to my History. You know what's really weird? We got Photoshop CC put in, and it has some different windows, and it's new to me for first time. So, but we have the original image, we opened it, and we cropped it. We go back and go to open, we can see where we started and then where we cropped it. So the nice thing about the history window is you can always go back a few steps. And also why I want you to have it open is I can always go back and see what you did. So if something gets screwed up, which will happen, and you say, Ms. Kopic, I have no idea what happened, I can go back and say, oh, here's where you went wrong on your history palette. We can check it. So that allows you to check it and to go back and see what you're doing. So you always want that open. So now we have that image there and it's cropped. Okay? So the next thing we want to do to any image is we want to do what's called levels. So in here, in the layers palette here, the layers palette shows you one layer right now. That's your background layer, and that's this layer that you see right here. So if I come down to the bottom of the layers palette, right in the middle of all of these icons, which you're going to learn what they are, the middle one, if you hover over it, will say adjustment or fill layer. Okay? I don't know why it's not saying it, but it should. There we go. Create a new fill or adjustment layer. If I click on that, it has another menu, and it has a bunch of different adjustments we can make in Photoshop. What we're looking for is this word levels. If I click on levels, you'll see now I have a layer above my background layer that says levels. Okay? But if I come over to the properties where the levels, this is called a histogram. Okay, the histogram shows you where the shadow areas, the highlight areas, and the midtones are in your image. Okay, so right now, the light arrow you see here is the highlights. The mid-range where you see here is the midtone range. It's gray. And then the black, which you can barely see arrow, is the shadow areas. So you can see this picture has very little shadow detail or any shadows. It has a lot of midtones because it's all gray and some highlights. What we want to do when we check our levels palette is we want to see if there's ever any empty areas. This area is empty. You can see the slider is over here, but there's empty stuff before the histogram starts. So what we want to do, and watch what happens to the picture when we change that. I'm just going to move the slider over until it touches the histogram. So you now see where we have in the picture some shadow areas that we didn't have before. The cool thing about the layers palette is it has an eyeball that I can turn on or off, and I can see what I did with that adjustment. So I'm going to turn it on or off, and you can see how much better the picture became having a little bit of those shadow areas, right? You guys see the difference? So the eyeball just allows you to view that layer on or off. The layer is still there, but it allows you to view it on or off by clicking on that little eyeball. Okay? And you can move the layers around by clicking on the top, just like you do in any Photoshop thing. The second thing that we want to adjust in our layers palette is we want to adjust our brightness and contrast. So we're coming down again to the little yin-yang symbol that's half white and half black. Click on that, and we're going to go to brightness and contrast. Okay? So this allows us to change the darkness or lightness of the picture. That's the brightness. And the contrast levels are how bright the whites are and how dark the darks are. Most people new to Photoshop tend to go with contrast really high, and they lose detail in the shadow and the highlights. The objective on any picture is to get detail in both the shadows and the highlights. So here we want to make sure that we just have a little bit more contrast, and maybe I can brighten it up a little by moving the brightness scale a bit. And then I can look at my layers palette and click that on and off, and I can see the difference that I made here. Okay? So I made it a little bit better, right? So this, now if you click those two layers that we added in here off, this was our original. And then this is when we added the levels in and we added the brightness and contrast in. So those are some adjustments we made to the picture to make it better. So now we're kind of like what we did. So we want to save the picture. How we save pictures is we go to File, Save As. We never use Save. We always use Save As. Save As. Now, down here you want to see this drop-down menu where it says Save As Type. You want to save it as a TIFF when you're working on it. You always want to save it as a TIFF when you're working on it. It's very critical. So we click TIFF and we say Save. And I'm just going to save it to the desktop because that's where it was before. And I say OK. But you guys are going to be saving everything in your S drive. So if we go to File, Save As, and you'll notice up here it's saving into the desktop. I don't want to save it in the desktop. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to want to go down to the S drive here, and I want to click Photo. I want to click my name, and I want to click the folder that says SDA Project or whatever, and then I want to say Save if I have the TIFF selected. I say Save. So now it's going to be in that folder, because you remember everything needs to be saved in your S drive for this class. Nothing anywhere else, only in your S drive. Okay? So I click out of that, and if I come over here, I can see over here, here's my original, and then I should have the TIFF one. So this is the JPEG original, and then this is the TIFF file extension. And this is the one where we've done all of our layers on, and we've done some adjustments. Okay? That's what you're going to do to every image that you work on for this class.